Why do Trump and Vance need to be denying whether Vance is holding a meeting about how to handle questions continuing over Epstein? Well, because in large part, as Lawrence O'Donnell pointed out, it's being leaked by Trump's White House staff, this kind of information. Take a look at the headline here. And what do they have to talk about? Maybe it's about what is missing from the Epstein and Maxwell prosecutions. So let's jump into that. But first, let me remind you, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make us the biggest and best legal analyst and political channel that there is. So let's take a look here. Now, first, it is completely normal to have the White House have meetings over how to handle any high-profile issue. White House is a political creature. It does that. It's even normal for DOJ to be managing requests to unseal files or even grand jury testimony in a matter of great public interest. What is totally abnormal, however, is the White House and DOJ, including the FBI, having meetings to figure out what to do because it's a purely political matter. Having the White House so blatantly use DOJ to coordinate a political response is really unheard of in modern times because it runs the risk of really true weaponization, such as bringing fake investigations, fake charges, just to help out the president who might be in a tough spot about something completely unrelated, kind of like the tail wagging the dog thing, which is exactly what Trump thinks should happen. He would like to use the DOJ that way, and he really seems to be able to do that right now. Do we ever notice AG Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General, saying they are independent from Trump these days? No, we never hear that from them. From Trump, we'll hear the old quote, "I don't know anything about it. I'm leaving it to the Attorney General," which is basically code for "I know everything about it, and I'm telling my Attorney General what I want done." Some of that's the amazing incompetence of Trump's staff, which is always more concerned about looking good to him than making him look good or making his policies such that they are work. Some of it is Trump's amazing incompetence in being able to manage any kind of real governance. All the mainstream media fawning over how he's a magician or a Teflon Don is enabling him, and it's also false. I mean, how is he a Teflon Don? Let's do a shout out to John Cotti, who, unlike Trump, was an actual mobster. Trump's the mobster wannabe. And what happened to Gotti was he beat a couple of big trials through witness intimidation and tampering with witnesses, but he ended up dying in jail. In contrast, Trump lost the very first criminal case he was ever charged with. Despite being a former president of the United States at that time, he was convicted of 34 felonies. He's on the civil side. He has had to pay hundreds of millions in damages for defamation. His business was found liable for fraud. Not particularly magical or Teflon, and much less any kind of successful leadership or power. It's just an abuse of power. And it needs to be shown that way, questioned that way, and reported about that way. I mean, anybody with a gun or weapon can rob and kill. Only people who lack understanding, who themselves are so unempowered, they admire that kind of power instead of criticizing it for its abuse. Trump's standard management of problems, right, is deny that they exist. It's a hoax. And that won't work if people won't allow the issue to be forgotten, which is what's happening now with the Epstein issue, which Trump calls a hoax. Of course, we don't know what he means by the hoax part of it. I mean, probably in his mind, the idea is it's a hoax that he should be associated with Epstein or have to take any fallout from it. Well, others associated with Epstein don't think it's a hoax. Major banks are out an awful lot of money over this hoax. Trump calls the whole Epstein thing a hoax because he won't, for example, he won't rule out a pardon for the co-conspirator of Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. And let's take a look at what the banks were paying millions over. JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank. Why would they pay millions in a matter related to Epstein? So let's take a look at what we can learn about what they did. Deutsche Bank paid $75 million, JP Morgan $290 million to settle cases over whether they should have known that their client Epstein was being enabled by their banking skills, their use of their banks, to do his sex trafficking. Now, those kinds of cases are in some ways very complex, but it boils down to what they knew or what they should have known. And they apparently had enough in their files that they were very worried that they should have known. and that's why they would want to sell that case. I mean, there were apparently red flags in their banking records of questionable transactions going on for Epstein. It raises this question of what's really missing in these prosecutions and investigations. Who are the people, mostly men, that could be questioned about this? Now, remember, Virginia Duffrey, who passed away tragically, she had sued Alan Dershowitz, the famous law professor. She claimed that Epstein had trafficked her to Dershowitz. That suit was withdrawn. She later said she may have been mistaken, but that suit by itself spawned multiple lawsuits. Dershowitz sued her for defamation. She sued him for defamation. Her lawyer, David Boies, sued Dershowitz, even though they used to be buddies at one point. That all settled with no money changing hands. And Virginia Duffrey said she might have been mistaken that Dershowitz was the one she was repeatedly trafficked to by Epstein. But notice what she said and what she didn't say in the settlement, right? She did not say she was not trafficked to men, just that she may have been mistaken about Dershowitz being one of the men she was trafficked to or the man she was trafficked to. Dershowitz always stridently denied her allegations. Obviously, despite the fact he seems to have some very specific recollections about visiting Epstein, who was once his client, and that he recalls getting a massage there from a woman, but he pointed out that he kept his underpants on, and even that he doesn't particularly like massages. But Dershowitz threatened to sue Viacom CBS over a fictional depiction of him. The Viacom general counsel kind of pointed out this massage issue and noted that Professor Dershowitz claims that he, quote, kept his underwear on during the massage. And that general counsel noted that, quote, a more benign mental image than what the mind might otherwise conjure, or at least there's that. So to be fully fair to Dershowitz, I want to make sure I'm not accusing him of any impropriety here. We don't want to get sued. I'm just telling you what's out there, okay? To be fully fair, Dershowitz had better detail than just remembering that he was wearing his underwear. He also had a description of the masseuse. We'll listen to this clip here.
About this.
It's just weird. And, you know, there are so many unanswered questions here. I interviewed Alan Dershowitz about this, who was representing Jeffrey Epstein, says he's still advising him. Alan Dershowitz told me he got a massage at Epstein's house, and then he clarified that it was from, this is a direct quote, an old Russian. Right. Said he saw no one underage. I mean, what's going on? I mean, what is this?
Right.
What are we talking about?
Point out he's a big
So he obviously remembers that the masseuse was not a underage child, but a, quote, old Russian. Now, this all raises the question of, if not Alan Dershowitz, then who, right? She was trafficked repeatedly to somebody, it seems. Who were the other potential men? That's really what's missing from the Epstein and Maxwell cases. One of the things that's missing. We don't know if she was specifically trafficked to another man, or these plus 1,000 victims were trafficked to other men, but it seems like it's something that we really should have found out a long time ago. And what type of men could be questioned besides Dershowitz, who would at least have some attorney-client privilege issues he wouldn't talk about, but lots of things he would talk about, just in terms of what he saw and such. Well, here's another example of the type of person that you might want to look at, a man closely associated with Epstein. And again, not accusing him of sexual misconduct here, but it's the kind of folks that should be questioned to see what they know. That he was a banker. He was one of the bankers who, the only banker who really took a fall for this, Jess Staley, once CEO of Barclays Bank, and before that, head of JP Morgan's private banking section. He met Epstein in 1999, and in 2019, Barclays was trying to claim that Staley was not very close to Epstein at all. Their contacts ended, but unfortunately for them and for him, there was a mountain evidence that came out in a UK proceeding questioning Barclays' involvement and Staley's involvement, and whether they had misled the finance regulators. 2-week hearing. Staley testified for 4 days. He was cross-examined about 1,200 email messages between him and Epstein, including one where Epstein kind of cryptically emails a woman to say that Staley is staying at the Berkeley Hotel in London tonight. Staley said he didn't know why that email was sent. And as esteemed a luminary as Jamie Dimon once told Fortune magazine that Staley had impeccable character and integrity. Staley himself testified that unbeknownst to Epstein, Staley, who was married with children at the time, was having sex with one of Epstein's staff, that they would meet while he was waiting for Epstein to show up, I guess, and that's what happened. He has emails about seeing a lover of Epstein's, the debutante ball. Not the sort of typical thing like an arm's length banker would be emailing their client about. He took his family to Epstein's Island, used Epstein's connections to help his daughter make connections for Ivy League schools. After all this, just this summer, Staley's final appeal was denied in the UK inquiry, and he's barred from working in the city, from the finance world there. Was he interviewed by the FBI? Were his emails subpoenaed? Any effort by US law enforcement to coordinate with the UK inquiry? These kinds of connections would be roadmaps to investigations. Again, not to say that Staley is going to get charged with child sexual abuse, but these are the kind of folks who were associated with Epstein, were watching the movement of money, obviously, and they would be invaluable in understanding who was involved. Were there men who maybe the statute of limitations hasn't run yet that could be prosecuted, should have been prosecuted? What happened with the Alex Acosta sweetheart deal? Why did Epstein get off so easily if there was this kind of evidence, or maybe they didn't have it? All the talk now about doing justice to the victims or survivors, the somewhat distraction issue of let's release the grand jury transcript, which is not going to have very much in there because it was summary witnesses. It's all just political hot air. The time to give justice to the survivors was long ago, and the injustices just keep coming. These frantic attempts at distraction also continue to do an injustice to the survivors, and we need to keep calling out the distractions for what they are and ask the question, why does Trump want these distractions? Because there's lots of material. Maybe it's in the files, maybe they never got to it. We need to know what's there, what's not there, and why it isn't there. And to do that, you got to keep the sunlight shining on them. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and keep those replies and comments coming. I like getting to them and replying to you. Thanks.
I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.